Welcome. This is Elizabeth Fulgaro. With me today is Chaplain Lisa Northway, U.S. Army, and I'm so glad you're with us still, Lisa. Chaplain Lisa, I'm excited for more of your story. When we finished the last time, you were on deployment in Iraq, and I would like to ask you if you're comfortable sharing about any times that occurred during that deployment where without your faith in God, you would have been in trouble.
Certainly. I'd like to briefly tell you a time before that, because the time before the time that I absolutely, if it wasn't for my faith in God and being sure of my calling and having maybe just a little bit of those confirmations along the way, even in the midst of the chaos, the personal, the spiritual and professional chaos that was going on. We were at our last camp in Basra, Iraq. We had just taken over recently from the British. I was part of 4th ID, and it was Mother's Day, and I just completed the Mother's Day sermon in our DFAC, or dining facility chapel. And I remember one of my soldiers saying, "Chaplain, the brigade commander's been asking for you and wants you to go to the troop medical clinic." And that was very odd because as a battalion chaplain, I had not a lot of interaction whatsoever, most of the deployment with the brigade commander. That's another echelon, another level up in the chain of command. And so I knew this was serious. I could see the urgency in his eyes. So I made my way across the camp. I think I was able to get a ride, a very large camp. And when I got there, I was told that there was a soldier in the operating room, and it was serious. And I remember a lieutenant coming up to me, and she said, "You're being requested to go into the operating room, and we need you to tell us where we're supposed to position you." And in that moment, some of the seminary training came back to me because I had never been in that, but I knew in some way I had been trained for this. And I remember my seminary professor, a Navy chaplain who worked at in San Diego at the Naval Hospital, him telling us, if they ever ask you where you want to stand, tell them you need to be as close to the ears as possible. We believe the ears are the last to go.
Awesome.
And she said, "Okay, we're going to take you as close as we can to the ears, and we'll show you where you can stand." And then she gave me my covering, the clothes to go with my uniform, the foot coverings. You're thinking, well, it's because it's a hygiene area. And then I remembered the other words that professor, that Navy chaplain, had said to me. When you go into that space where you will be very sure not to take the whole scene, the whole room into your eyes and your heart. I realized then in that moment that he was teaching us to guard our hearts, that it would be too much.
That makes sense.
And then I realized as I walked in that room, that young lieutenant took me around the spans, around the outer edge, around the surgical team, and she placed me where she could, and she explained to the medical team she needs to be next to his ears. And they nodded, kept going, and I knelt. I made myself as small as I could in that space. I could see there was a whole team of people fighting for his life, and I would at times feel maybe a brush of one of those medical staff and quick movements and different things. And I found myself praying for them as much as I was praying for that soldier.
Yes.
And I remember those words of my Navy chaplain professor and saying, "Speak into his ears, pray into their ears." And I remember knelt down and acknowledging him as that he was somebody's baby. And that I was quite sure if his parents, if his mother could be there, she would be here. I remember thinking that to myself, and that led me to the prayer that right now, his mother, his father, his loved ones can't be here, but I'm here. And it's my duty, my spiritual responsibility to pray. And so I prayed in a way that I thought only God could allow him to hear me. And then there came a time I said, okay, it looks like we've done all we can do. We're hoping for the best. We're going to go ahead and fly him out for the rest of the way. I was told to go ahead and leave, and I was just outside the room, and I was talking to his battle buddies, and they were offering to help. And then I hear I was summoned again. Chaplain, come quickly. There's been a change. And so we went back into that space. I remember holding his hand, and they did not expect the outcome. They were really hoping that things would turn out better. But in a matter of minutes, and I continued to pray. I remember I'm holding on to his hand, and then I see the doctors start closing up things and walking away, and I'm still there. And I couldn't even imagine walking away, but I realized at some point I was going to have to let go of his hand and walk away.
Oh.
That night, certainly there's much more that happens in a situation like that I came alongside of. But the one thing that really emerged for me in the middle of that mission, and I came through that, and I was able to say, many people say that it's in combat that they find out what they're made of. And I realized for me in that moment, I found out in combat that my God is who he said he would be. And I knew that because of how he showed up in that space, even in the face of loss, and how we even honored our soldier in the days to come. But God was still who he said he would be. And he showed up. And he helps us do the unfathomable. He helps us to walk through the unspeakable. And he helps us figure out how to just keep putting one step in front of the other.
Thank you for sharing that. How did it go for you after that?
And I think that's why I needed to share that story first. Because, and this is that so many times I've sat with my soldiers, isn't it enough? Isn't it enough that we're called into combat, that we go and do hard things? But why do we have to deal with all these other things, these very human things like leadership that does not respect or dignify our humanity, or comrades who betray us? Can't we just go to war? Can't it just be sterile and clean? And we just go do our job and we come back home. Maybe there's a part of me that's idealistic. Maybe I just want so bad for my soldiers to be able to have that experience, that we all want to see some sort of redemption this side of eternity. We know we have it in the next. We know that and yes, we can, we do have a Redeemer, and yet we're left hungry for so much more. And I do believe that's part by design, that God creates us. We have these voids that are even created along the way in life that make us hungry. And if we allow them, they will make us hunger and thirst for righteousness, for something only a holy God can do. And so it was a matter of weeks. It was getting close to just a few weeks before we were to return home, I believe. And I got a knock on the door of my little container room and that I did not have to share this time. And it would have been it would be hard to imagine sharing it. It's even smaller than the other places. And I remember the soldier looking really scared and fearful. And I was more in tune with like thinking of what I was seeing before me than what I was hearing. But he said, Chaplain Northway, the boss wants you, not the commander, but your supervisor wants you to come and report right away to him. I said, okay, is there an emergency? Is there something going on? Like, did we forget that there was a convoy did I miss? Because it was my job to pray 24/7 ops. As my commander said, make sure every convoy is prayed over before they go out. And the beautiful thing about that, there are no guarantees, but at the end of this mission that year, I did get to return home with all of my soldiers that I deployed with, even though there was loss.
Fabulous.
And adding my faith with theirs is really what we do, and we just pray. Maybe we all come home, and we all be able to continue. And so I thought maybe I missed a movement. Maybe he's because it was just so this state of urgency and the look in this young man's eyes. I think I was more troubled for him than myself. And on the way, I got through my stuff on. I remember, on the way to his office, I'll just stop at my own office just to grab something, maybe a notebook or something. I just had this check. I just did stop there for a moment. And I remember reaching for the door and realizing there was a padlock on the door. And I think, why would there be a padlock on the door and I don't have a key to it? And I was disturbed about that. Thought, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and check in. And the person I reported to said, Chaplain Northway, I mentioned that I couldn't get into my door on my way, and he says, that's right, Chaplain. From now on, you will report to the talk. You will not have a trailer for your office and your operations, but you will sit there and you will stay there until I'm satisfied with the way things are. But
what does that mean?
Well, I think I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, did I do something wrong? Or
right.
wasn't sure. And so I said, well, sir, can I get my government laptop out there? Can I get a few things? And he says, sure. Let's go. And so I had the space between the tactical operations center and my office wasn't, goodness, it was probably 500 feet. But I remember it was almost like it was happening in slow motion, and he was out in front of me, and I felt like I was being led away. It's involuntary. There's something not right about this. Something's not right, and I literally felt like only I can imagine was. It was like my own Via Dolorosa, my own suffering. And there had been so much professional suffering. It was around the same time where I had soldiers come to me and said, my first sergeant said, I shouldn't bother you because you're being harassed so much by your own supervisor, your own, your situation that we should not bring you our own problems.
Oh dear.
And which was horrifying. So
yes.
I immediately went to that lead and I said, hey, we're all here to take care of soldiers, right? I said, don't stop them. And so, okay, well, we just weren't, didn't just think we could impact it except by with having them not come to you, and like, oh no, that's ministry is still going to happen. We're still going to, regardless of whatever how people are treated, we're gonna continue to take care of each other. But I remember on that path, it's almost like I can remember it slow motion, the trauma of it, and feeling like I'm being led away. As he's scoffing at me and threatening me, and it was open in public. I know that there were people who saw and heard, but I had this sense at the same time, it's almost as if I could see Jesus. And I did picture him in some of the way we've seen him in the movies, and that his robe was flapping, and he was walking fast with me, like, you're not alone. I'm with you. You don't know what's up ahead. You don't know how this day's going to end. You don't know this. This is your way of suffering, but you will not walk this alone.
What a gift. Let's continue this in the next episode. Thank you, Chaplain Lisa.